Well, thank you guys for letting me be with you guys. There's probably a reason why I refer to my hair as my money maker, but nonetheless, it is a joy to be with you guys as we wrap up this last session. Really grateful for those that have gone before me this morning. I thought Zach and Guff did an amazing job kind of laying out for us an analogy that's really kind of shaped much of what we've been talking about so far. Zach and Guff kind of laid out this transportation model, talking about having a starting point as we think about the journey of discipleship and then an end point. That what we're hoping for every single individual as they walk through this journey of discipleship is that they would land into Christ likeness and being a mature disciple in Jesus Christ. We kind of looked at that as an analogy or as a model in which we've talked about kind of selection, pathway, and portrait. Incredibly indebted to the Merrills that I think lived this out greatly. It's, I think, been one of the biggest impacts they've had in our church too, is just thinking about the idea of discipleship as a team sport. Zach and Guff talked about different roles that we play as a discipler, but recognizing that not all of us play each of those roles really, really well. So looking at discipleship as a team sport in which we bring others along with us as we disciple a multiplicity of people. One of the things I loved back most as I think about even my own college days is that my college roommate and I would go out every single Wednesday on campus as students, and we would go out trying to share our faith, and there would be so many moments along the way where we'd get into a conversation with someone, we'd be asking question after question, and conversations would spin and turn to different places, and there would be so many times where I'd feel just completely stumped and not knowing where to go next in the conversation, so I'd look over to my buddy and say, "Bud, your ball. I have no idea what to do this one." And so whether married or whether single, just the idea of being able to make disciples together within community as a team sport, I think is absolutely revolutionary. Completely changes, I think, our sense towards intimidation, toward the goal, our ability to step towards it and feel capable in it. And so I hope for you guys that's been a great encouragement. What I want to do with my time with y'all this as we wrap up this morning is really focus in on this middle section, the pathway. Guff and Zach talked about different experiences and roles that come to bear as we look at that pathway. And what I want to do this morning in this session is really move us from the philosophical, I'm going to get down to nuts and bolts into the practical. And by the time you guys walk out of here this morning, I want to introduce to you guys a series of tools that you would feel extremely familiar with and even increasingly more so confident that you could use as well as you walk out and as you begin to disciple people. In fact, we're going to have an opportunity with a panel that's going to come up that's actually been in the field with each of these tools to kind of talk you through what the tool is, how they've been using it, and how they've seen men and women change and grow through that tool. And so we really want to get practical as we wrap up here with you guys this morning. I'll tell you, I think as I think about the journey of discipleship, I think it's really helpful that we have a starting point as we think about selection and the kind of people that we want to work with. I think it's really helpful when we have an end point goal idea, this portrait of what maturity looks like and the target where we're trying to go. But I think for many of us, the real challenge comes in this pathway. What do we do with people and how do we go about helping them grow and move along the way? I think the Merrills gave us a lot of ideas there, and what I want to do with our time is kind of go even further in that, because I think if you and I have a great sense of where we want to start and where we want to end, and a sense of how we begin to move through that process, it's exceedingly helpful. But when you and I have an idea of where to start and where to finish, but we have no idea how to move through, it gets very discouraging, very frustrating, and very disheartening. A little bit like my golf game, right? I'm on the tee box. I feel great about I'm starting out. I have a great sense of clarity as to where I'm trying to go. I even know exactly the tool I need to bring to bear on this moment. I'm on the tee box. It's time for my driver, right? I get to the middle of the fairway. It's time for my 7-iron. I'm up on the green. It's time for my putter. But that's never how it goes, right? Because I don't know how to use any of those tools, all right? My grip is off, my backswing is off, my stance is off, everything is off. And so what I do in my golf game is exceedingly frustrating, exceedingly discouraging, but I see way more of the golf course than anyone else, okay? In fact, I will tell you the last time I played golf, I went like this. I was in beautiful Breckenridge, Colorado this past summer. My father-in-law took us out, all the dudes out for a golfing day. He paid for it all, which made it even sweeter. But it went so poorly for me that by the front 9, I was done. I literally walked home, all right? I was so frustrated, all right? I knew where to start. I knew where to finish. I even knew the tools, and these were nice tools, nice clubs from the country club, right? And they were the best, but I had no idea how to use them. And so I ended in frustration and in futility, and I just wanted to walk off. What I hope to do with you guys this morning is to give you guys a sense of some tools that you can bring to bear as you guide and as you lead people along in their journey in discipleship with you. And give you some familiarity of these tools so that you would feel confident knowing kind of where to go and what to do with people. As we begin to think about this pathway that connects it and the tools that we'll bring to bear, I want to help you kind of look at that pathway with a little bit more detail. As we think about people's journey in discipleship and their journey towards spiritual maturity and Christ-likeness, we kind of recognize that there's 4 stages to their journey. Since a lot of us are former engineers and we are former preachers that have to alliterate everything, we put it as 4 C's, all right, for you. That we recognize 4 stages in which people move through their own journey in discipleship towards spiritual maturity. That every single person at some point in time starts off in the stage of curiosity. They're curious about who Jesus Christ is. They're curious what the Christian community is like, and they want to come in. They want to be amongst us. They want to watch. They want to listen, and they want to learn. One of the things I was thankful for, one of the things I've been thinking about recently was it was Christmas Eve, and we had a series of my wife's coworkers over. We had internationals and grad students from over 4 different nations at our dinner table on Christmas Eve. It was a sweet time getting to talk about Jesus. Even as the Merrills talked about, my wife is a starter. She is a launcher of things. And so she kind of helped gather this moment. And so we're at dinner and we move into our living room for just kind of hanging out and having some drinks and whatnot. And so we're moving to the living room and one of the internationals says, hey, he walks up into our living room. We have a manger scene and he says, what's the deal with the manger scene? Why is this such a big deal? I mean, could you have more of a softball, right? I was like, Kenny, great question, right? Let's sit down and let's talk about it. And for the next hour and a half, he and the other 3 grad students that were with him that night that we didn't know that he invited and brought with him, as he's been searching to know more about Jesus, he brings these friends. So we have an hour and a half conversation in our living room that I didn't plan, but I had been praying for. Getting to talk about who Jesus is. And they came from different nations with different religions, talking about the distinction between Christianity and other religions. It was amazing. Getting to have those moments, thinking out people who are wanting to know more about Jesus. They're eager to know who Jesus is. They're eager to know more about this Christian community and the church. But then at some point in time, as people move through that journey, some will fall off, some will fade away, but some will come to a point where they'll make a decision to know and to believe in Jesus Christ, and they'll enter into a relationship with Jesus Christ. They move from curiosity to a stage which we refer to as convinced. They've believed the gospel and they've moved into a relationship with Jesus Christ and they've become convinced of who Jesus is, that he died, that he was buried and resurrected. And then it becomes our opportunity and their great need to become established in that faith, to be rooted deeply in that faith. And as they're rooted and established, eventually they move to a stage in which they are not just convinced, but they're committed. Then they're not just in the family, but they are sold out. They're investing the entirety of their life into this great enterprise, and they're picking up the mantle and trying to help people find and follow Jesus as well. And as they continue to mature, at some point, they move to more of a stage in which they become more of a coach, helping others find and follow Jesus, but they're helping others who are helping others who are helping others doing that. And we begin to get a sense in which in this discipleship journey that there's multiplication. That all of a sudden it becomes exponential. You have people who are eager, who become established, who become equipped, and now they're being coached and they're becoming exponential multipliers in this great task that the Merrills put up with 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 2. The things you've heard from me, the things that I've entrusted to you, pass these on to others who will teach others also. It becomes multi-generational as it passes from one generation to the next. One of the things I love about our local church here is that because of the college ministry here, our church, about 50 to 60% of it turns over every 3 years. That every few years we have to be reminded of the fact that we are ascending church, that we are always 1 or 2 generations away from being irrelevant and not having an impact. And so we're constantly raising up, we're constantly restocking, we're constantly reinvesting our lives and our hearts in the next generation that are coming through, whether that's into youth or whether that's into college. That as we begin to think about these 4 stages, what becomes really important for us as we think about who we're getting to work with is we begin to have to ask the question, where do we find them in their own journey? Kenny comes to me and comes into a relationship with us as he's in that curious stage. He's seeking to learn and seeking to know more. But for many of us, as we begin to disciple others, we have to have a sense and we have the ability to assess where we find them in their own journey and their own maturity. Really, the idea of assessment, the idea of evaluation is one that we're very familiar with, but I think for some reason, when it comes in the spiritual realm, we kind of have some resistance to it. But you and I evaluate all the time when it comes to academics. We're evaluated all the time when it comes to athletics. This past fall was my first time ever with my boy Colt, who's now 6 and in kindergarten, to go into organized sports. And so he jumps into Central's flag football league. And before the league kicks off, they have an assessment time in which they come and they have to go through a skills drills to get a sense of where each of the kids are so they can build a team with equal value and equal skill sets from the other team. The actual day of evaluation for Colt, I actually missed because I was out of town. And so Marcy takes Colt to the evaluation deal. And so later I was like, hey, honey, how did it go? And she's like, oh, it went great. I would find out a few days later that our own Dusty Davis, our Creekside campus pastor, who also moonlights as our skit guy, as you may have noticed, also moonlights often coaching kids' teams. And on that day, he was the evaluator for my boy. And so I said, Dusty, who's not as optimistic or flowery as my wife, I said, Dusty, how'd it go? How'd my boy do? Feeling a sense of pride and just waiting for man, he crushed it. Dusty instead leads off with, well, I think you might need to know that he caught way more balls with his face than he did with his hands, all right? It's like, oh, that's helpful to know. We have a few things we need to work on, right? I think for me, I thought, well, look, it's kindergarten flag football. I'm not thinking this is going to be an aerial assault, right? We're not going to be running the run and shoot spread offense with 4 receivers, right? It's probably going to be a handoff deal. So I thought, he doesn't need to learn how to catch yet, right? I hadn't prepped him. But whether it's athletics or whether it's academics, assessment and evaluation always gives us the best sense of what we need to work on with someone. Every single one of us is on a journey towards maturity and towards Christ-likeness, but as we invite some people into a journey into discipleship, it's imperative that you and I have a sense of exactly where we find them. Where are they in their own journey? If you cannot assess well, you are going to waste a lot of time. To the degree that you can assess well, to the degree that you can get a sense with great clarity and vividness as to where someone is, will give you a greater sense as to the plan that you need to build around and to help them grow and to help them mature. Ultimately, what we're going to do with you guys this morning as we wrap up is we're going to give you guys a tool for each of these different stages that helps people grow. So if someone's in the curious stage, how do we help them grow towards maturity? If they're in the convinced stage, how do we continue to help them be established in their faith? If they're in the committed stage, how do we help further equip them in their faith? What is a tool we can bring to bear in each of these stages? And so I'm going to ask our panel to come on up because I want them, as they've been utilizing a series of tools in each of these stages, I want you guys to have an opportunity to hear from them who have been in the field to help you guys to get familiarized with the set of tools that we're going to make available to you guys after the conference. But again, wanting to move from the philosophical to the practical, so I'm excited to have these guys with us. So why don't you guys, real quickly, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit of your role and kind of the general sense of some of the ministry that you guys have been involved with.
Yeah, so my name's Jen Strasnicki. I'm a mom, a wife, and I have 3 kids. I've been involved in Grace's global outreach team, helping train and prepare people to move overseas. And then my family and I are moving overseas this summer. So,
my name's Carolyn Jones. I'm on staff here at Grace. I'm the women's director, also on our curriculum team, and just worked with a lot of women and people over the years. And I'm going to be talking about a new believer follow-up tool.
Hi, I'm Austin Hornung, and I work in the Anderson College Ministry. A big part of my job is coaching Bible study leaders to go out. So I'm in the committed section and tool.
Awesome. Thank you guys for joining us. Jen, I'm going to start with you. Tell us a little bit more, just particulars of your ministry. Who is it you're often getting to work with, and where has the Lord put you?
Yeah, so I actually live in an apartment complex among international students, and that's strategically where we focus as we're training people to move overseas. So I work with discipling people who say, I want to move to the unreached with my life, and then I also work with international students in training them how to reach out to them. So.
Awesome. So I know you guys really have, frankly, helped familiarize a lot of us with a tool that I'm excited for you guys to get to talk about. So tell us a little bit about the tool that you guys have really been using a lot and kind of its impact with those that are in that curious stage.
Yeah. So we use the Discovery Bible Group tool. We'll call it a DBG. And we use this tool as we've maybe shared some stories, maybe our testimony, maybe a Jesus story, or had a spiritual conversation with someone who's curious about Jesus. We'll have this, conversation with them, find out, they're actually kind of interested. What do we do now? Where do we go from here? we'll ask them if they want to study the Bible with us, with a group of people. And so we use this Discovery Bible Group tool. You just go through a certain passage, and you have about 8 to 10 questions you ask every time that are the same each time. So
Awesome. How have you seen it really impact those that you're going to work with, and how's it really kind of helped them learn more about who Jesus is, and how they help kind of keep growing through that?
Yeah, one story I really love to share is my friends Jackie and Jean. So I met Jean at a park one day with my kids. At this point, I wasn't actually in ministry. I was a mom. I had a business, and so my husband had a really busy job. And so we met these people, find out that her husband had been in a really serious car wreck, and he had felt like a higher power had saved him. So they tell us this whole story. They're like, we don't know who this higher power is. We're like, oh, wow, this is amazing, Would you guys want to study the Bible? We think this could be maybe God, the God of the Bible. And they were super excited. So we started studying the Bible with them. They're from China. They had an atheist background. And as we walked through the scriptures, it was cool to see how they become convinced that God was real, that he was personal, that he was speaking to them. And it wasn't something that we taught them every week. We just asked them these questions, like, what do you see about God from this passage? And they would walk away and be like, oh, we see him speaking to Abraham. I wonder if he speaks to us. We see him saving Noah because Noah was righteous. What does it mean to be righteous? We went through the suffering servant about Jesus, and they're like, they didn't know it was Jesus. So they're like, who is this person that would suffer for our sins? And so from God's word, they became convinced about who God was. And by the time we got to Jesus, we showed them the Jesus film, and the husband was like, yeah, I've already started following Jesus. And the wife's like, what? You didn't tell me. You made this decision. It's so funny. We're like, wow, we had no idea that was going on. Meet with the wife a couple weeks later, and we talked more through the gospel, and she started following Jesus after that. And they actually moved away a couple of weeks after this, which was such a bummer because we're like, we're going to get to disciple them. Yes, and she got a job in New York and left, and we were like, what do we do? But they texted us last fall, and they had a picture of them in front of their Chinese church in New York, and they were like, we were just baptized. Wow. And I think that was just so amazing because my husband and I are kind of cynical, so we were honestly like, were they like a spy? I don't know. Seriously, we are really skeptical. Like, what was that? They just left. Like, this is crazy. But no, God was moving in their life. He laid this foundation of himself. And when they moved to this next big city, that foundation was solid because it was built on God's word. It wasn't built on what we had taught them. So yeah, that's how we've seen it impact people.
Gentlemen, let me ask you a question, and I'll just say this a little bit about myself so that the question has a little bit more context. So I'm just one that doesn't accept or build new things into my life very easily. So if it's Christmas and I get a new shirt for my wife who's making a suggestion about my wardrobe, it takes me a few months to kind of work it into the cycle. So, which communicates a lack of love to her, but we're working through that. And so even with a shirt or a tool, when something's brand new, for me, I kind of have this resistance to it. And so for you, if you're thinking about someone who might be using that tool for the first time ever, who's never used it before, what would you say to them? What would be a helpful piece of wisdom just as maybe kind of work with it for the first time ever?
Yeah, well, first, I think Guff developed a simple resource they're going to put online for the Discovery Bible Group. So I'd encourage you to pick up that resource, and just want to encourage you, there's a book called Contagious Disciple Making that goes through it that's pretty helpful. But I would say, if you do none of that, all you have to do is just know that it's simple, that it's not really about you. It's not you about being the teacher. You don't have to read a commentary before you show up to this Bible study. You don't even have to read the passage, actually. You just show up and ask the same question. So it's just really simple. And within 3 or 4 weeks, our friends who didn't know Jesus were actually leading the group. So for my husband and I, were really busy. We didn't have time. We had 3 little kids. They had 1 little kid. The kid just ran around, and we just went through this study. So just know it's really simple and easy to use.
Awesome. Thanks, Jen. Carolyn, tell us kind of tool that you guys have developed that's new and why we did it.
Yeah. So Kevin Bear and I have been working on, for about 6 months, I'd say, a new tool to actually help establish a brand new believer. Okay, so it's called a new follow-up tool, and it's actually called First Steps. So as we've had our metaphor of being on a journey, what are those very first steps that a brand new believer needs to take? And I loved what Todd said last night about someone being mostly dead. This person who's just trusted Christ, they're really just asking those very deep questions. How is this new relationship that I've just trusted in, this new person that I've just trusted in, how is this going to impact some of the deepest needs, the deepest things that I care about every day? So we know that there's so much that we want to share with a new believer, but they're like a mostly dead person that's been starving. And so with a starving person, you can't just feed them a giant meal, right? You have to just say, okay, what are those nuggets, those bite-sized pieces that are really going to nourish them, and then have something to build on for future meals. So what we are developing is called, like I said, First Steps, and it's going to center around 3 big ideas, and actually 3 big questions that most people are asking every day of their life, really, if we think about it. And those are around the concepts of identity, belonging, and purpose. And so in this packet, we are going to break those down in just 3 little 1 week or 1 session times with someone. So these would be the first 3 meetings that you could have with somebody. And the first one with identity answers, who am I now? Okay, who am I now in Christ? What has changed in me? And the answer is, now I'm a child of God. I don't have to create an identity of my own anymore. And that identity is secure. So you're building on the concept of eternal security. Who am I? I'm a child of God, and I am eternally secure. Nothing can snatch me out of the Father's hands. And then the second part is about belonging. It's a deep need we all have. We've all talked about it. And it's what's funny about identity, belonging, and purpose is when you start thinking about, Kevin and I have been thinking about it for about 6 months, and literally everywhere you look, every podcast I hear, everybody's talking about these things. And so the gospel and trusting in Christ really resonates with a new believer because these are the things they've been looking for. And now they have the answers in Christ. So belonging, of course, now we are members of the family of God. That's the main idea. Where do I belong? I belong in the family of God, the church. And so that's the big concept in the belonging section. And then finally, purpose. It's exactly what we've been talking about all morning. What is the big thing that God is calling me to? Not just to have a great career or a great family. What's something that I can give my life to? And it's the 2 things we've been talking about all morning. It's spiritual maturity and spiritual multiplication. So how can I grow to be like Jesus and then help others find and follow him too? So those are the 3 kind of main ideas, the 3 bite-sized pieces that we would want to give a brand new believer: identity, belonging, and purpose.
Carolyn, I know we do a lot of writing of our own curricula and a lot of our own Bible studies here. If someone who's used to kind of a lot of the things that we write picks that up, how's it going to feel different? What are some things that they should keep in mind?
Yeah, it's going to be really similar to kind of what we have because as Nancy had said, every good time when you meet with a group or with individuals should really consist of those 3 things. She said looking back, looking up, sorry, and looking forward. We kind of call it connect, grow, engage here at Grace. You're connecting with that person. How was your week? Connecting what's happening in their lives to then what you're going to talk about. And so then you would do that every time you would meet with somebody using these 3 sections of this packet. And then you would grow. So it's a 1-pager. So you would actually talk through it together. There's no homework involved, reading scripture together. And then actually we built in some of these discovery Bible questions. Basically, what do these verses say about God? What do these verses say about people? Those skills, just building them right in. And then we don't just want to say, oh, that was great, nice, see you next time. But actually, okay, what are some action steps that you can take between when we just met today and when we're going to meet again that will actually help you begin to practice your faith? Faith is a walk, faith is a journey, hearing and doing. And so in each of the lessons, there is action steps to follow. So it really follows our same curriculum, connect, grow, engage. And there's one little other piece to it. At the very beginning, there is a clarification of the gospel. So where it says gospel check right up there, right in the beginning of it is a section that shares the gospel again, and you clarify, is this something you've done? Is this true of you? So that's basically what it looks like.
Awesome. Excited about it. Austin, Tell us a little bit again. You had quite the Anderson College contingent, I heard earlier. So I think you got more cheers than I did, but that's fine. It's not a comparison. But tell us a little bit just who you've been working with and kind of a tool you guys have been getting to use.
Yeah, so this tool is something that college ministry here developed over the summer. Similar to these other ones, it has kind of a connect, grow, engage format, or if you want to think of it as the mentoring, teaching, and coaching, and then kind of as you walk through it, you model what it would look like for them to walk through it with other people. It's an 8-week kind of thing, so it's made to fit in a semester to kind of get your convinced, committed person to go out and coach and have other people walk through it. And kind of, it's like these 8 essential kind of lessons about the Christian life. So there's 4 on God, and there's 2 on the church, and then 2 on the world. So it also kind of fits in with that grid that we were looking at earlier. But who I've been walking through it with last semester, so I said I coach Bible study leaders, so I walked through it with my 6 guys, some at Creekside, some at Anderson. Thomas and Dylan and Carter are here, so 3 of them are here. And they are, this semester walking through discipleship with students of their own who will then hopefully in the fall go and do the same thing. And so it will be this thing that multiplies.
That's awesome. I so appreciate you guys getting to be with us here and getting to talk through these tools. And I think as we think about assessment, kind of coming back to that idea that we're, again, trying to get a sense of, for someone along their journey towards maturity, where do we find them exactly? What stage do we find them in? And is there a tool that really helps us as we kind of help them move forward in that midst of that stage? One of the other things that I wanted to mention as well is we can think about it, growth is multiple ways. In some ways it's linear, that we move into it linearly through maturity in some ways. In other ways it's compartmental. And so if you think about our 3x3 grid for maturity, that portrait, that we have an axis of thinking about relationships. We have an axis thinking about areas of growth, areas of transformation. And so we also have a tool that we'll put out in your hands as well that's a little bit more of a tool to help you sort through, both for yourself or someone you're working with, where do they find themselves maturity-wise in each of these 9 boxes? Is there a column that they're uniquely strong in? Maybe they're really strong in kind of their relationships in the church world, but maybe they're really, really weak in their relationships outside of this Christian bubble. Or maybe they're really strong in their knowledge, that kind of horizontal row, but maybe they're really weak in application and learning how to live it out in spiritual disciplines. And so it's another tool we're going to put in your hands, trying to think through whether people you think about maturity in a linear sense or whether you think about it kind of in a compartmental sense, a series of tools that we want to put in your hands to help you assess and to think through where someone is and helping build some steps out as we think about them moving forward. So thank you guys for joining us. I want to share one quick verse. I want to share one last verse as Brian Fisher comes up to kind of close us out here this morning, and that's this. I think there's the Merrills that actually share this as well, and so I'm just going to come back to it because I think it's truly helpful. I think as we think about people that we're inviting with us along a journey towards maturity, we kind of spent some time into here on the idea of tools, but I want to kind of bring it back out for you guys, back to what Paul says in 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 8. My translation has a little bit of a different wording on the affection part, but here we go. He says, having thus a fond affection for you, we were well pleased to impart to you not only the gospel of God, but also our own lives, because you had become very dear to us. But part of what we're hoping, part of what we're asking God to do as we come alongside of individuals is that God would grow in us a great heart for them, a great vision for the life as we think about assessment for where they are and where God is calling them to, that we can affirm their strengths, that we can challenge their weaknesses, and that we can take a part of the trip. We're not going to bring them to full Christ likeness, and so we may have a season in which we settle up alongside of them and a heart that develops for them as we impart not just truth, but also our very lives as well in this fully orbed experience, in this fully orbed journey. So we're grateful to have you guys with us for a weekend. We've thrown a lot of things at you guys, thrown a lot of things that we think you're going to have an opportunity to process on as you kind of move forward. But we wanted to end this morning getting to kind of pass it back to Brian to put a bow on it. So thanks for coming up, Brian.
You guys have absolutely no idea how incredibly thrilled, like literally I'm standing here with chills right now, how thrilled I am that so many of our people would show up to talk about, think about, and become better equipped to make disciples. I mean, I'm just over the moon, fired up. because this is the mission of the church, right? I want to close this with a really simple story from my own life that profoundly marked me. It was 26 years ago. I had just come back to Grace Bible Church. I'd been at a little international church in Prague. I came back here, and one of the first few weeks, a college student walked up to me and he said, "Hey, Brian, would you disciple me?" And I just had this really weird moment right then when he said, "Would you disciple me?" And I thought to myself, I'm not sure that you know what you mean, and I'm not sure that I know what you mean, and I'm not sure exactly how to do that. So to put that in context, right, I had been involved in Young Life in high school, and then later I'd been a Young Life leader, and I had worked in a youth ministry. I actually started a college ministry in Dallas, and I've been on lots of mission trips, and I've been on a bunch of retreats, and I've been with other believers in Bible studies, and I had a 4-year seminary degree, and I'd studied Greek, and I'd studied Hebrew. I had lots of information, lots and lots and lots of information. But in that very moment, what I realized was just the simple fact was, I don't have a plan. But I don't have a plan. So he said, "Would you disciple me?" And I answered yes. Right? Because what I lack in skill, I make up for in confidence. So I just said, "Sure, I'll do that." I did put a little caveat on it. I said, I must acknowledge to you, I'm not exactly sure what that means. I'm not exactly sure how to do it. But if you're willing for us to figure this out together, let's go. Let's go. And one of the books that I dug into in that process was The Disciple-Making Pastor by a guy named Bill Hull. And his point is simply this, that pastors should make disciples. That's normal. That's the normal pastor makes disciples because disciple-making is the mission of the church. And then I grabbed another book by Leroy Imes, The Lost Art of Disciple-Making, which I bought because it was the shortest book on disciple-making I could find. And Leroy Imes is great at a plan. He has a plan. Is it a perfect plan? No, it was a plan to help me get started. And so this guy, we started together on this journey of discipleship. And the reason ultimately that I said yes was I just had this moment, this really, my epiphanies are always simplistic. They're just simple little things. I just realized this is the mission of the church. That's it. And this is the mission of my life. Singing songs together and doing Bible studies together and listening to sermons together and going on retreats together, those are not the mission of the church. Right? Those might be great pieces in the puzzle, but the mission of the church is to make disciples, right? That end is a portrait of this maturing, growing, reproducing follower of Jesus Christ that we call a disciple. So that's where we're going. That's what we've got to get to. And so I said yes. And I want to encourage you to do one thing this morning, and that is just get started. Just get started. Do not wait until you have this whole thing entirely figured out. Please don't. If I had waited for that point in time, I still would not be making disciples. I have a stack of books on my shelf. I'm constantly reading on this topic and constantly learning and growing in my understanding of how to do this really well. And as a church, we're going to constantly talk about this topic because this is the mission of the church, and we want to do it better and better and better and better. And so we're going to build some new curriculum and try new things, and we're going to try new opportunities to assess people and figure out where are they and where are we and how do we need to grow. We're going to constantly be churning on that. But the point is simply this: just get started. Right? Do not wait, because this is the mission of the church. Some of you are involved here at Southwood. We started Southwood how many years ago? Anybody remember? 10. It's 10 years ago, just about 10 years ago, right? And the reason that we started Southwood was because we realized that the normal Christian life is that the believer reproduces, and the normal church life is that the church reproduces. And so we felt this compulsion to make space where more people could come in and be equipped to make disciples. So about 2 years ago, I went to a church planning conference, and one of the speakers made this kind of just weird sounding statement to me. But later I thought, that was really good. He said that the healthiest churches are born pregnant. Like, ew, it's a little, it's a little awkward. But okay, I see your point. It's a good point. I'm still struggling to find a better way of saying that doesn't make us squirm. But okay, so you get the point. The healthiest churches are born with this DNA that it's normal and healthy to reproduce. That's normal. So we planted Southwood with the expectation that we would fill the seats with people that we're equipping to make disciples, so that it would put pressure on this place to reproduce another body of believers who are equipping one another to make disciples, who are equipping one another to make disciples, and puts pressure on that place so that we begin to this continual process of reproducing personally, but also reproducing as the body of Christ. And that's why we planted Creekside, and that's why we're looking at additional locations here in town and throughout the United States and throughout the world, because that's the natural and normal thing that individuals and churches do. If they're healthy, they reproduce. That's what Todd talked about last night. If they're healthy, they reproduce. So my charge to you is very simply this: just get started. Some of you will stay here. Some of you are going to leave here and go, and we embrace that we get to just make a little investment in your life, and then you go. And when you go, I want to challenge you to make disciples and to go into that next church and help that church become a disciple-making church, because that's the normal Christian life. And that's a normal body of Christ life. So, body of Christ, Church of Jesus Christ. My exhortation to you is this: be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth with beautiful, fully formed followers of Jesus Christ. Let me pray for us. Father, make us these kinds of people that have this vision. Make us this kind of church. And let us not escape that this is the singular mission of the church, and let us grow better and better and better at it, and let our passion be inflamed deeper and deeper, because we love Jesus, and we know that life is found just in him.